Ah, Christ. Doctor Who's back on, and I thought not a better time than now to talk about the next stage in this never-ending TV show's evolution. I'll probably review the rest of the episodes as they come out and let you know what I think of them, but just to let you all know beforehand, I'm a raving lunatic fan of the first series starring Chris Eccleston and Billie Piper, and a not-so-big fan of Matt Smith's 3 years as the weirdest Doctor of all time. Some would say this is the result of me growing up from a 9-year-old who wanted nothing more than to see Big Ben getting smashed by a giant alien spaceship, and that I have matured enough to not appreciate the newer series.
I hate Bogart, just stuffed with bits in.
But I have watched all the episodes countless times, and I still hold my opinion that the show has been getting progressively stale since Russell T Davies' departure and the introduction of Matt Smith and Stephen Moffat. So, will this new Doctor bring about something interesting to rekindle the flame that has now become ashes and embers? Or will we see more nonsensical, pretentious drivel that we've had to put up with for far too long now? Let's dive right in. We're only 10 seconds into the episode and the first problem arises. The dinosaur. It looks okay on a comedic standpoint, but I sure as hell am not laughing. This is more of the crazy nonsense that's thrown into Doctor Who episodes to give the Doctor a big entrance into the world, but doesn't serve any other purpose. What I also don't quite get is why all these people aren't running for their fucking lives right now. And along comes what I like to call the forgetful trio. I don't know what they were doing in the Matt Smith years, and I still don't know what they're doing now. Just turning up in Victorian era where the Doctor is to stop the mischief he's brought to humanity. Going back to the dinosaur, the fact that the TARDIS has actually brought the dinosaur to this time period doesn't make any sense. If the TARDIS is stuck inside the dinosaur, it should be able to just warp out of it. When the Doctor escapes the Dalek ship in Parting of the Ways, it doesn't take the whole fucking ship with it to wherever it's going through the time vortex. More to the point, why did the dinosaur get absolutely destroyed on its journey here? You'd have thought the time vortex would have been at such extreme speeds that anything that isn't invincible would be nothing but bones upon arrival. I think it's just another excuse to make the Doctor's entrance dramatic and wonderful for all those Whovians that love a good old bit of weirdness in their Saturday night televisual clusterfuck. So our memorable friends go down to the beach and the semen-stained TARDIS is welcomed by Mr. Potato Head. The new Doctor then comes out and acts rather weirdly, just like Matt Smith did for 3 years. Thingy then walks out of the TARDIS after a long hard shag, and the Doctor can't seem to remember what he's been doing for the past 1,000 years. I'll get onto that later. When David Tennant came to be, he instantly remembered where he was and what he was talking about.
Oh, that's right. Barcelona.
Because of the already established convoluted storyline set up by Moffat and co, this confusion that the Doctor is having firmly assures me that I'm not the only one who hasn't got a clue who all these characters are. Thingy then repeatedly tells the Doctor to calm down even though he is quite calm. He's just quite unsure what to think about the situation. He then faints and the new intro plays. This is probably the first positive thing I have to say, but the new intro is quite interesting. There's no more wobbly stuff, but the clocks and the cogs seem to give off this feel of a sci-fi show about time as well as space, where the previous intros were similar to that of the sequence at the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And then the stupidity begins again. I've always seen the Doctor as this all-knowing and logical character who, after regenerating, learns all the new things about himself in their first episode. The only thing I've gathered so far is that he's a fucking idiot. Maybe this is because he's gone past the 13 regenerations.
And is there a limit? I mean, how many times can you change?
507.
Oh. Sorry. I forgot about that fact. Great. Another excuse to keep this show going for years and years and years. Besides that, I'm not sure if this scene is meant to be funny or something, but I find myself banging my head on the desk wondering whose idea it was for the Scottish Doctor to be a complete Dumbo. So the Doctor gets knocked out and we get more annoying dialogue from Stumpy.
May I take your coat?
Not wearing a coat.
What's all that?
Clothes.
May I take your clothes?
Probably not.
Sir Dontos from Game of Thrones then appears and gets his eyes plucked out. Interesting that an actual bad guy is now just introduced, considering that the dinosaur hasn't killed anybody yet. I don't have a problem with this character at all, but it just seems most of the CG budget went into half his face rather than the dinosaur. So the stupid Scotsman wakes up and starts acting weird again. He starts sniffling the floor for no reason, and then suddenly he feels the need to scribble mathematics into the floor. And finally we see him choose something new about him. He prefers climbing out of the windows than using a door. Irrelevant, but we're taking baby steps. It's a start at least. He then goes up to the roof explaining to the dinosaur that he's going to take her home.
Big, sexy woman! Hey! Sorry!
This scene is rather amusing to watch, to say the least, but then all of a sudden the dinosaur explodes, and I would have loved to have seen the dinosaur used as a plot device later, but that hope is just smashed and we're back to square one again. The Doctor doing weird things just so we can get a chase scene. The Doctor disappears, we get more lip from Strax, and then sends Clara back to bed with a newspaper. The sound effect that it hits her with actually made me laugh. Not the fact that he just threw up the newspaper, but the out of place sound effect that just caught me right off guard. What the fuck is the sound doing there? I think I'm the only person that's taking this show seriously. Should I be watching this from a more comedic standpoint?
What's all that?
Close.
May I take your clothes?
Probably not.
But if I do that, making sense of the story becomes more of a chore than it already is, so I rest my case. Anywho, we see Clara run down the stairs, who then walks straight back up again, just in case she couldn't be heard just a few feet away from her by the maid. We then have this scene of Strax trying to fit in as the butler, but a straight out glaringly obvious continuity error occurs, and I'm back to banging my head on the desk again.
It's perfectly all right. I washed it myself.
All of a sudden, I'm not very thirsty.
Really? Perhaps it is...
Say, Strax, you sure moved that bucket real fast. How does this happen? Fucking hell. The medical exam takes place with more awkward nonsense, and Strax then takes a look at Clara's cleavage. She is perfectly okay with this because she's already admitted to men doing sports is something that she gets turned on by. I mean, Strax is a bit short, but and probably doesn't work out much, but when you're time travelling, you're lucky to get any sex. She just plays hard to get with him, and we've just had some more time wasted on us. Speaking of which, I thought this new runtime would be effective, but it turns out it's mainly just wasted time, and this opening episode is the only one with the added half an hour. Well, we'll see if next week's is any better, and if it's back to the regular 45 minutes. I hope it is. The Doctor then carries on being weird and bullies some old hobo out of his coat. I honestly thought an older Doctor would have more patience and a serious tone about him, but he's just catering to all the Matt Smith lovers out there. And this is very concerning if this is what drives this show now instead of the story and atmosphere. We're nearly halfway into the episode and we're finally onto the spontaneous combustion stuff. Oh wait, sorry to interrupt. We're back to the Doctor acting weird in a restaurant. They argue for a long time and then they realise that neither of them invited the other. They then are restrained by the seatbelts of the children's menu, which I must say are rather conveniently placed, and taken to the robot's kinky dungeon. We find the robots are actually almost the same ones as the Clockwork robots from Series 2, which funnily enough has the same writer. And then he keeps trying to recall what it is.
Droids harvesting spare parts. That rings a bell. I've seen this before.
I've seen this before!
Anybody who has been watching the show as long as I have will know what you're on about. And even those who don't won't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. You'd have thought the robots would be aware of the Doctor and Clara's entrapment and wouldn't leave themselves so vulnerable, Considering as well that this leader of the robots has a brand new set of eyes taken from Sir Dontos earlier in the episode, why does holding your breath make you a robot? We don't know if these robots have hearts or not, or lungs for that matter, but they could listen for an extremely high tempo or heartbeat compared to the rest, and job done! She then trips out and sees her class as being rebellious and stressful, words I would use to describe my Doctor Who experience right now. I'm not sure if this bears any relevance except from the fact that the robots are pretty stressful to be around, I can imagine. Then this idiot robot starts asking where the Doctor went, even though it was pretty fucking obvious that you locked him out with a button on your arm. He also doesn't realise that he could have prevented the Doctor from escaping had he shut the door as soon as the two arrived down below instead of recharging. I like it when villains have brains. It makes their motives more understandable and develops them into more interesting characters rather than stone cold murderers. Take John from Seven as a good example. He clearly had his plan set out from the start, and his dialogue suggests that he's already won his game before it's even ended. His motives of killing people who are filled with sin is somewhat understandable rather than being just psychotic and killing people for no reason. Don't get me wrong, I know these are robots, not humans, but if they were harvesting body parts, surely the first thing you'd take would be the brain! Anyway, Colin Firth the robot gets a bit angry and impatient, and the forgetful trio return to save the day. It's a shame that this fight scene was so poorly choreographed that they had to use shaky cam to make it look intense, which in my eyes it really doesn't, and just confuses me at what I'm supposed to be looking at. I guess it's what the BBC does when you can't show people being sliced up with swords at 7 in the evening. I seem to remember them doing that a lot with Robin Hood when that was on TV as well. They never learn, do they? The Doctor then tries to stop the main robot by negotiating with it, despite the robot claimed 5 minutes ago that it does not negotiate. We then return to the awkward fight scene, and then the recycled plot device returns of holding your breath, saving the main characters. The compulsory lesbian kiss shot is then used, and by this point I realise that the title of the episode, Deep Breath, now holds some relevance to the plot. The episode then has a somewhat interesting moment in which the Doctor admits his love and care for human beings, which I think is certainly a good thing to see considering all the angst Chris Eccleston held for them.
I did it again, I picked another stupid ape.
The Doctor then pulls a witty phrase out of the bag, and the robots are defeated rather magnificently with this shot. This has to be one of the highlights of the episode, as it did build up rather well, but overall I felt it just took too long to happen. Too much chit-chat, I think, and half an hour extra runtime, methinks. So everybody is safe and I don't care. But we still have 10 minutes left of the runtime. What fun and excitement are you going to first up with now, Moffat?
You've redecorated.
Yes.
I don't like it.
Nope. I don't like it either, Clara. Don't worry. I think they were going for something nostalgic of the earlier designs. I don't really know. I'm not really upset with it though, so I guess we'll just have to sit with it for the rest of the series. Maybe it'll grow on me. And then, the biggest stupidity of the show award comes to light. I may have touched on this earlier, but I will now outline something that is just beyond stupid. Take it away, Capaldi.
I've lived for over 2,000 years.
I'm sorry, do you want to repeat that?
I've lived for over 2,000 years.
Wow, this makes so much sense. Let's just look at a quick timeline here. Chris Eccleston states that he has experienced 900 years of time and space.
900 years of time and space, and I've never been slapped by someone's mother.
And only 4 years passes in the David Tennant years.
I'm 904 years old.
So we know that Matt Smith cannot be more than 1,000 years of age, surely. If this new Doctor has suddenly come out with, I'm over 2,000 years old, then what in the holy fuck was Matt Smith doing all that time? Just because we have a new Doctor who is comparatively older than the previous ones, then why should you suddenly stack 1,000 years onto his life? So Clara then decides she doesn't want to be with the Doctor and gets a phone call from Matt Smith. I've got to say, I never thought I'd see him again, but this phone call is actually rather excellent. How this works is quite beyond me, but this phone call is perhaps a form of apology for all the stupid behaviour this new Doctor has been having. And even showing that the Doctor is just coming out of his shell and that we shouldn't be so quick to judge him like Clara did. The Doctor then wanders around trying to establish a few minor things like whether he likes hugs, quite gets coffee and chips, and his sheepishness kind of makes me feel a bit sorry for him. The final scene involves the dead robot coming back to life and meeting this character called Missy, who claims to be the Doctor's girlfriend. From what little I've seen of this character so far, she has my full attention, and she will surely be revealed to have some importance later in the series. I'm wondering now if every character that dies comes to the Promised Land or whatever, but we shall soon see, won't we? I think she's the Rani. I give this episode a 3 out of 10 because its only merits lie in the latter part of the episode in highlights, whereas the bits I disliked have been numerously outlined, and the extra half an hour could have been cut down to remove stupid parts, and we could have had a solid episode. Thanks, Moffat!